For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. Well, given the hawkish stance of the Fed, which I'll come on to, I heard that yesterday, most Asian stocks have actually fallen. The Hang Seng down over 1%. China is marginally down. If you remember yesterday, I was talking about the economic moves that may well be made and the sort of forecast they're expecting from China. Apparently, the Economic Committee, the Central Economic Work Conference, is working behind closed doors because of COVID. We'll hear about that, what they actually say tomorrow. China retail sales disappointed, actually, fell more than expected, down 5.9% in November. Industrial production only rose by 2.2% as opposed to 3.8% expected. Now, this fall in retail sales and the lack of growth may affect supply chains in the rest of the world, but it will keep the cost of Chinese goods actually down. And this is a big however. Morgan Stanley, my namesake at Morgan Stanley, Michael Wilson, has upgraded the growth in China in 2023 from 5% to 5.4%. So Morgan Stanley, at least, is expecting a big bounce within the Chinese New Year to actually do that. So let's turn our attention then away from the Far East to the United States, because that's really what everybody was waiting for. Yes, they did raise the interest rates there, but only by 50 basis points, by 0.5%. But there's a general feeling now that maybe central banks are entering a new phase. The Bank of England expected to raise by 50 basis points today, as is the European Central Bank as well. Investors have called it a bit of a roadblock in front of Santa's sleigh. That's how they're putting it at the moment. I think it was totally expected. I feel as though it was necessary for the Fed to remain hawkish, necessary for Jay Powell to say what he actually said yesterday. And it could be that the peak of interest rates in the United States is, wait for it, 5.1%. And that may happen in 2023. But certainly the Fed is remaining hawkish, and I cannot understand why anybody expected to do anything other than it's done at the moment if it wished to keep the narrative that it set itself. Elon Musk has sold 22 million more shares in Tesla. That comes to about $3.6 billion in total. He's sold $22 billion worth of sales. You remember he bought Twitter for $44 billion. And Tesla shares are now down 55% on what they were a year ago. We're going to turn our attention now to FTX. And whilst Sam Bankman-Fried did not make it from the Bahamas and is actually languishing in jail there now until February the 8th, the new CEO, John Ray of FTX, is charging $1,500 per hour for his expertise. That expertise, he did a similar job at Enron, did a similar job at Nortel as well. The disappointing fact for investors, as far as FTX is concerned, is that he and his team get paid because they are contractors. They get paid well before any of the investors get their money back from the wreckage of FTX. Harry and Meghan, now there's the thing. The Netflix are very, very happy with this. Apparently this documentary debut brought in 81.5 million viewing hours. It's been the top TV streaming in 85 countries. So there you are, Netflix very, very happy about those kind of figures, much happier than many in the British press who've been saying that it's a farrago of lies and deceit. Come on to that if you wish me to. UK inflation cooling very, very slightly, down to 10.75% as opposed to the 11.1% we saw in November. But, and it's a continual reminder this, forgive me for saying it again, but just because inflation is coming down, it does not mean that the cost of living is reducing. It just means that the rate of price increases is slowing. That's all that means. So it's going to be very, very tough here for quite some time. And a rather alarming note from retailers throughout the UK that people are swapping from debit cards to credit cards, which is no good thing as far as the economy is concerned. There are more people getting into debt to fund what they're buying. Oil, finally, stockpiles are the highest since March 2021. Those who have memories which stretch over a couple of years will remember that oil went negative in April 2021, not that long ago. The stockpile is now a year. The stockpile, excluding what we don't know, is about 10.2 million barrels, and expected against the expectation of 3 million barrels. So there's a huge amount there. And the normal things will be brought to play on the oil price, which is still, I think, within that range of between $70 and $80 a barrel. That's the kind of near-term expectation. Still about Chinese demand and what Russia withdrawing from the market will actually do. And given the hawkish comments, as I started this report, really from the Fed, it's felt that the oil price won't do a great deal because the hawkish comments increased the value of the dollar, and oil prices, oil is paid in dollars. So therefore, a slight fall and a recession over 2 years. That's what's basically expected. Where the oil price goes from here, still fairly volatile. That's the global view.
Stockpile numbers is not going to lead of dumping at some point, because if all new OPEC members are increasing production like Nigeria and the likes, and you have the highest stockpile ever, it's not going to lead for some dumping.
I'm sorry, I missed the first bit of your question only because on a final note, Rafai, you'll actually like this. That one of the reasons I'm able, thankfully, to transmit to you, really on a very final note, is because I bought something that actually that stores electricity during the frequent power outages that they call them. Effectively rolling blackouts. They call it load shedding here. And just on a very, very final note, the CEO of Eskom, which is the state electricity company, has actually resigned as of yesterday. So the place is in total chaos, but the electricity blackout. Now, so I do beg your pardon. I missed the first bit of your question. Would you mind repeating?
So what I said was, with this high stockpile, is it not going to lead to dumping of other collections of oil in the international market, since this is the highest stockpile since the last time in April?
I think it will. I'm not altogether sure about the international markets into 2023. Many people are telling me that there will be bargains to be had. There will be productivity buys to buy as well. So I honestly couldn't predict anything from where we are right now. I think that 2022 was clearly a dreadful year, and it may be that the recession which we're expecting in 2023, a global recession, actually forces more companies to the wall. It's really too difficult to predict right now. All I can tell you is that as far as the Fed's concerned, they are desperately keen to say, look, we're not raising at the same rate that we were, but we're still hawkish. And I think that's if you believe that sort of narrative, and you believe the fact that inflation needs to be squeezed out by higher interest rates, then that's what the Fed has to say.
Okay, you talked about the Kardashians of success. Netflix being happy with them. Well, Netflix is interested in profit, naturally, but the British press is concerned about the infighting within the royal family within 100 days of Prince Charles as King Charles now. And of course, what is being done to the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. But today, the Bank of England is likely to announce new interest rates, 50 basis points, or what do you think we should expect?
Okay, let's do the royal family first of all. This piece of material that's being transmitted by Netflix is supposed to be a documentary. Now, we all work in the same business. What a documentary actually does is it tries to get to the truth of what's been going on. This is not a documentary. This is events as seen through the eyes of Harry and Meghan. And whilst it's got a lot of viewing, as you probably expect, even my wife, who enjoys the various UK soaps and is quite an expert on television consumption, would not watch it for more than a quarter of an hour because it was so clearly It was so clearly a farrago of lies and deceit. Now, again, fine. If that's what you actually want to watch, no problem with that at all. But it's not a documentary. It's not a documentary by any stretch of the imagination. If you or I had turned that out in our professional career and said it was documentary, we would have had the sack. I've seen people sacked for lesser things than actually take place in this. For example, there is a sequence in it of the fact that the royal couple are supposedly being besieged by Fleet Street photographers. Nonsense. The one shot that shows them was actually one man from the Evening Standard, which, as you know, is a London newspaper, and he was invited there by the press. By the royal press officer to stand there to take photographs. They were not besieged. It's completely wrong. And the other big thing where you see lots of flashing bulbs and all the rest of it, and lots of pressmen scrambling over each other to get the photograph, was at an event that they weren't even there at. So this is not a documentary. Now, royal families are different. Royal families, of course, there will be feuding within a royal family, because the whole idea of a royal family is something that was bought as a commodity many, many years ago. Does it do anything to upset Queen Elizabeth II's memories? No, it does not. Absolutely not. Right, Bank of England today, 50 basis points, probably as expected. They will, I would hope that the ECB does exactly the same kind of thing, and it probably will. But I think the message from both of those will echo what's in the Fed, that we have to tame inflation before we can start to think again. So I think 2023 is going to be very difficult indeed.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Yes, so I mean, Nkechi already in correspondence in DC went through this, but real quick, Biden administration announcing $350 million for digital growth on the African continent with respect to the U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit. And then you also had Visa announcing that they would be spending, I think, about $1 billion on the same matter, assisting SMEs and so on in making digital payments. So they're also putting $1 billion there. This is good, but the amounts are small. I mean, $350 million, you could sink that in a real estate project in a local government area. $1 billion, yeah, you know, we more. And the African nations really need to be selfish at this point to where individual countries are trying to get deals for themselves. The biggest deal we've heard this week, I'm not sure if maybe you've talked about this already, was Tata Group, which just recently acquired Air India. I think the deal is going to be effective 2024 when they close it. Tata is planning on spending about, I think it's $100 billion on 500 narrow and wide body aircraft. That is a lot of money. I mean, that is a significant. Reuters was reporting this.
Colossal.
It is an astounding amount of money to where they are putting. I mean, the prior record for ordering wide and narrow body craft, I think it was American Airlines. I think they ordered from both Boeing and Airbus, and it was about 460 fleets. What Tata? I mean, and by the way, the World Bank earlier said this week that India is on course to get 100 billion in remittances. That is not a typo. 100 billion in. We really need to focus on what India is doing. They are doing the work, and so I'm just putting this within the context of what has been announced. For the U.S. to announce $350 million, and then Visa is saying $1 billion for digital growth. Look, man, yeah, it's fine, but this is a deal. This is the type of purchase that really, really gets your attention. Anyway, move on from that. Education. The UK, they need teachers, and they've opened up some opportunities for foreigners to actually get jobs. And when you talk about low barriers to entry, they've really made this as straightforward and easy as possible. If we take a look at the countries that are eligible, they announced 9 of them. The Department for Education announced 9 countries. So if we look at the list of countries, we have Nigeria, South Africa,
That's Jamaica.
Zimbabwe, Jamaica, yes, okay, here they are. So Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Hong Kong, India, Jamaica, Singapore, and the Ukraine. Effective February the 1st, it's the UK Qualified Teacher Status Opportunity. And you don't even have to have a teaching degree, you just have to have a bachelor's degree, and they'll even train you. You can work in the UK without that teacher training for about 4 years, after which then you have to get trained, and then you can. Look, we've talked about this with doctors, right? And I think they even opened up another opportunity for nurses. We've talked about the whole jackpot phenomenon this past year. This is you're gonna see an outflow. Any one of us in this studio could qualify for this and go and teach. You just have to have your qualifications for math, English, and you can get the training later on. Now, what that means for our education sector and the number of teachers that will be available and their pay and so on, that puts that all back under the focus. Now, fuel. The independent petroleum marketers of Nigeria have announced, they said about 350 tankers on their way to a number of NNPC depots in order to reduce the fuel scarcity. So we'll see if that comes to pass. And then Ghana, my goodness. Ghana's latest inflation figures that came out yesterday, 50.3%. There was this is year on year, there was a 79% jump in utilities, food. Ghana is under the cosh right now.
How many year high is it? I think it's like a 50-year high. Because the last time I remember...
21.
21
22, yeah, something like that.
Okay, so that was when this guy was just coming in Kufuor, before he balanced things out as regards the economy, leading up to when this guy left Rawlings, So, let's go straight to it. Rotus, the truth is, when you plan properly, you'll get things coming in. The reason why India can get so much money in diaspora remittances and they have groups like Tata do well is because over the years, the government has been able to focus on education and have standards and places of excellence across, universities in India. Their tech universities are second to none and all of that, and they can churn out this talent.
Even healthcare.
Travel there. And the reason why you even have good healthcare is because people that went to the diaspora, people like Dr. Devi Shetty, the pioneered open heart surgery in India, came back and they developed from within. That's why you see they've been able to bolster the healthcare sector. Even the numbers from the, they have some years that were more than 100 billion in remittances. They pretty much, and guess what? Let me shock you, Rotus, this is just about 2 million people of the top high-end earners, and they're putting money back in remittances and they're developing the economy. So what can we tap into? We should also use our diaspora commission to be able to do a lot of work with our diaspora, foster remittances, and make the economy conducive to here. Because yes, there's a knock-on effect. We don't have enough talent here, and they're being taken away.
Like the UK
teachers has opened a scheme too. A lot more teachers will go. But how can we incentivize our teachers to stay back home? Because we need that knowledge. And how can we pay them money, Rotus?
Right.
We've not opened up the economy enough. And that's why I say 2023 matters. We shouldn't vote to some shallow thinking president that thinks about himself alone, that thinks about how to steal money for him and his cronies and doesn't help open up the economy. So if we open up the economy, over 200 million people spread across 923,000 square kilometers of land, Rotus, I believe Nigeria can be a superpower and we can truly have 10-15% growth year on year for another 10 years and catch up with countries like India.
Yeah.
You know why? Because all this projected growth of China, a lot of bulk of the growth started in the early 2000s, 2001 when they joined WTO, World Trade Organization, and you can see how China in the space of 21 years have accelerated in growth, and it is possible with Nigeria. Rotus, this country is not a hopeless case. This is the best kept secret in the world, but we just need somebody that has properly screwed on head to make it work, and that's why elections matter in 2023.
Absolutely. Rufai has said it all, but I'll just say that when you were speaking about the teachers, the opening up of teachers to the UK, I thought you were advertising it a bit too much. Like, please don't make it sound too good because...
I don't need to advertise it.
It's true because even mentioning that, anyone at all without even having a teaching degree can move. Already we're trying to grapple with the brain drain with regards to doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals. We don't need our education sector being affected as well. That was the feeling I had when I saw the announcement made yesterday. But these people know something that perhaps we're not tapping into, like Rufai mentioned, our human resources, the potential of the human resources in Nigeria. Unfortunately, if we do not harvest in that sense what we have, other countries will come in and just take out the best. And what would we be left with?
Number one, Ghana. We discussed Ghana yesterday, and we are back to it again today. inflation rate in Ghana is 50.3%.
50.3, yeah.
The highest in 21 years, up from 40.4% in October. And you know, the evidence is writ large. The CD, as I pointed out yesterday, is half of its value today than it was last year. Small businesses in Ghana are suffering. There is tension all over the place. Ghana was once praised for its stability.
Yep.
Now everybody is saying what happened to Ghana. A few months ago, President Nana Akufo-Addo used to boast Ghana without aid. The same Ghana now has had to go to IMF to go and beg, and IMF is, putting down very stringent conditions. Some people call them conditionalities.
Yeah.
And so the question for me is, what lessons can other African countries learn from Ghana? It's not enough for us, to just sit down and say, oh, look at what is happening to them in Ghana. Can we learn certain lessons from there? But clearly, this will have political implications. The next general elections in Ghana is in 2 years' time, in 2024. And the MPP may find itself, that's the ruling, National Patriotic Party, may find itself getting a verdict from the people. As for the visa thing, yes, it's good. I mean, Africa is a very big market. Digital transformation promised by the Americans, all of that is good. But the main emphasis there is payments, is the partnership, that President Biden was talking about. And it's not just visa. A number of other countries also signed agreements with African countries. Yesterday, being the day for business forum discussions. As for the brain drain, you recall that when the UK, this Conference of Business Industry, CBI, when they had their conference last month, they were saying that the UK needs immigrants to come and work. The government was opposed to it, but Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, said, well, even if we're going to bring people, it will be people with skills in the area of artificial intelligence and areas of need, not to bring, many workers to come and reverse the gains of Brexit. So here we are. Nigeria is one of those countries included. Hong Kong is there. They're looking for teachers. We are likely to have brain drain.
Oh, yes.
More teachers going to the UK.
Oh, yes.
But in any case, that reminds us of the need to provide a better enabling environment here so that Nigerians can be, at least with a sense of patriotism, say, we will not, what's that phrase again?
Jackpot.
Yeah, we will not leave our country. We would help to stay here and build this country together.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
I hope that happens.
Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you so much.